Hello YouTube, and welcome to the monthly stats video for April. In April we generated just over 1 megawatt hour. That was thanks to some lovely sunny weather towards the latter half of the month. So this pie chart shows where all of the energy came from each of my arrays. You can see that this month we have a new one, the MPP Solar. If you've looked at my previous videos, you'll see I added some solar panels to the roof of my power shed. These have now come online, and you can see that 4% of the total generation for April came from that new 1 kilowatt array on the roof of my shed. Most of it, again, as normal, comes from the Solax. That's the 5 kilowatt inverter, so you'd expect it to generate the most, and pretty much a fairly even split now between the GrowWatt 1 and the GrowWatt 2 kilowatts. In April we unfortunately had to export a fair amount of power. As you saw, we generated a lot, just over a megawatt hour, and it got to the stage where we just ran out of places to put it. After having several really glorious sunny days in a row, the cars were all full, the house batteries were all full, the hot water was always hot, and we just ran out of places to put it, so had to start exporting it to the grid. So as you can see, for this month we have exported nearly 16% of the power, but we still managed to keep 84% of it, which is pretty good going, especially as that represents 857 kilowatt hours. We only had to import just over 35 kilowatt hours from the grid. There was a couple of times where there was a couple of glitches in my software that caused it to pull power when it didn't need to. I've since fixed those bugs, so hopefully that won't happen again. But there was a day in the middle of the month, I think, where we ran out of battery and did have to import some energy from the grid through the night, so that's pretty much accounts for that. So the worst day of the month was the 28th of April, and we generated just 7 kilowatt hours on that day. If we overlay the worst day of March with the worst day of April, you can see that they're fairly similar. The best day of the month was the 22nd of April, and we generated just over 54.5 kilowatt hours on that day. Was that your best day? Let me know in the comments. If we overlay the best day from March with the best day from April, you can see that we're still getting a bit more. The April peak is a little bit higher than the one in March, but they are starting to get fairly similar now. And we have this new green line here, which is the solar power generated from the new 1 kilowatt array on the power shed. And you can see here the difference between an on-grid and an off-grid inverter. The on-grid inverters obviously just generate all the power from the solar panels into AC power, using it all the time. But when you've got an off-grid inverter, the only place it has to put that power is to supply to the loads and to charge the batteries. Once the batteries are fully charged and there's very little load needing to be supplied, the inverter just stops taking power from the solar panels. So you can see the green line matches pretty much the 1 kilowatt GrowWatt inverter up until just after midday, and at this point it starts tapering off, even though the sun would have still been getting slightly higher, and that's because the batteries were full and it was just finishing the last little balance, and then eventually it tapers all the way down because there's nowhere else to send that power. So actually, if we'd have had fully empty batteries in this power shed that day, we would have actually generated more because it would have had somewhere to put it, and our figures for that day would have been higher. So we could have maybe hit 60 kilowatt hours or something. So here are the daily import charts for April, one for each day. You'll see a few places where there's slightly raised bars, This was due to the bugs I found in my software. As I mentioned, we didn't actually need to pull any power then, it just was a slight glitch. But you can see when we got to the 9th into the 10th, we did actually run out of power late in the evening and started pulling from the grid through into the next morning until the sun came up. So that broke our streak that we had up to that point, but then from then onwards we haven't had to pull any power from the grid again. You know, I'm ignoring the fact that there's a couple of little glitches in there because they were software problems, not actually down to the fact that we didn't have enough power. And like I say, I think I've fixed those now, so I'm hoping that sort of thing won't happen again. You can see we pretty much pulled almost nothing. Of all the energy that we used in April, 96% of it was self-generated. Only 4% of it came from the grid. That is pretty good going. Very pleased with that. And if we compare that to March, you can see that that's improved dramatically. This pie chart shows where all the power went for April. As you can see, there's about 18% went into the leaf and about 18% went into heating hot water in the immersion. When you compare that with the previous month, you can see that significantly more energy went into the leaf. That's because in April we both had some time off, and so we weren't using the cars very much, so we didn't have to put so much into the leaf. But we still put 150 kilowatt hours into the leaf and 145 into the hot water tank. This is really good because it obviously means that we don't have to heat the hot water using gas, so that adds a further saving for us. Okay, so our longest streak now stands at 20 days, and that happened in April. And the longest continuous off-grid streak is also 20 days. That is the new record. Okay, well, that's all the stats for April. How do they compare to yours? Please let me know in the comment section below. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.